If you've built an incredible product and you've got some revenues flowing, well, congratulations. You've now hit the beginnings of product market fit. Now comes the harder question. The harder question is, how do we actually scale this? Now, from the outset, if you're just starting to get into sales and marketing and go-to-market strategy, it may seem really chaotic, but here's the thing they don't tell you. There's actually a scientific process to unlocking growth for SaaS and AI companies. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 5 exact steps to follow so that you can build your scalable growth machine and you can unlock your path to that next stage of growth. Hi, I'm TK, and I've helped hundreds of my clients scale their AI and SaaS companies with a differentiated go-to-market strategy. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the 5 steps that you can follow to build out your scalable go-to-market machine. And by the way, all the principles and steps that I'm gonna be walking you through here in this video, I go in depth inside of my 5-point AI and SaaS growth strategy guide. If you'd like a copy of that completely free, just comment below with "Give me the guide" and I'll link you to it. Now let's dig into it. Now, the way this process works is we ask ourselves a set of questions, and out of that question comes a set of things that define our go-to-market strategy and helps us build our go-to-market machine. All right, so step number 1 in this entire process is the most important question that we need to be asking ourselves as founders as we're scaling our companies. And the question is this: who has the urgent and important problem that we solve, and how are we different? This is a very simple question, but each of these steps that I'm gonna be walking you through addresses the most important strategic question to ask. And usually it's not a one-word answer. It's an in-depth answer that really helps us make choices. When we are building out our go-to-market strategy, the quality of the answers to these really tough questions are really what determines whether we're gonna be successful or not. And the important thing to remember is strategy. When we say go-to-market strategy, it can be an overloaded word. The thing I always remind my clients is strategy does not have to be a complicated thing. All it is choices. We're making choices. So in this case, in order to answer this question, there's 3 key things that come out of your answer. The first one is your ideal customer profile. This is the specific type of ideal customer that's best fit to buy your product. It means that this specific ideal customer has the urgent and important problem that your product solves. And the second piece is the messaging. Well, you may have a lot of competitors. There's a lot of AI and SaaS products that are out there, but there's something unique about you. There's a certain way you solve the problem for these ideal customers. There's a certain way that you need to communicate that. And that goes into your messaging that will resonate and speak the language of your ideal customer. And finally, the third piece is your positioning. Your ideal customer profile gets into the specifics around what segment of the market you're going to be going after for this next amount of revenue. Now, you may be at $1 million ARR and you want to get to 3 million, or you're at 100K in ARR and you just want to get to 1 million. We're not trying to define an ideal customer profile for the entire market you can go after. We're only defining the ideal customer profile to get to that next revenue band, whether it's 1 million, 3 million, or 10 million, whatever it is for you. And for that, we want to make sure we get specific on the ideal customer profile. And to that specific ideal customer profile, we develop our messaging. As we are zooming in and out on exactly what segment in the market we're going after and how we craft our message and how we differentiate ourselves, that's when the third piece comes in. That's your positioning. That's your position in the market that puts you in a competitive advantage compared to the other solutions that are out there. So that's step number 1, and probably the most important thing, because every single step after this builds on top of your ideal customer profile, your messaging, and your positioning. If you get this wrong, then all the other pieces won't matter. Now, step number 2 is where we dig into this specific ICP and your specific message. The second question we want to ask ourselves as we're building out our go-to-market strategy and we're building out this scalable growth machine is, how do we communicate our message in a convincing way? This is actually a very, very important point to consider. Just because you say you're the best CRM for small businesses doesn't make it true. It needs to be convincing. It needs to stand up against all the other marketing that your ideal customers are seeing, which is why we have to answer this question in a very specific way, in a very convincing way, and in a very compelling way. When it comes to AI products and SaaS products, there are lots of tools available to our disposal. You could be for a specific segment of the market. You could be a tool that's cheaper. You could be a tool that's completely automated, whereas other tools require manual labor. There are different ways to differentiate yourself, but it's also important to communicate that in the right way. Now, out of this question, when you're answering these questions, there's 3 things that get codified. The first one is your manifesto. Your manifesto is explaining exactly why you exist, what you do, what's the transformation you're bringing in your customers' lives, and why you're 10 times better. Sometimes people refer to this as their strategic narrative. I call it a manifesto because it's a framework that I've battle-hardened to really codify what a company does and why they should exist, and how to make it convincing to the potential customer to go with you versus anyone else in the market. Once you have the manifesto, the second piece is your homepage. And I know every single founder I talk to, especially at the scale stage, they're constantly trying to figure out what their homepage should say. A lot of times, what got you to your 100K in ARR or 300K in ARR isn't gonna get you to the million or the 3 million. So the homepage and the messaging needs to be updated based on your ICP, your messaging, your positioning, and your strategic narrative, which is your manifesto. So you'll wanna make sure that based on the answer to this question, you also update your homepage. And the third piece is a lead magnet. Now, the simplest way to do this is to take the manifesto that you've created, which you fed into the homepage, you also turn that into an actual lead magnet. A lead magnet can be a simple PDF, it can be a website, it can be an entire experience, it can be a tool, but the simple one that I like to use is an actual PDF that I can share with my potential customers, that I can FedEx to my potential customers, but more importantly, I can offer on organic social so I can exchange it for their contact information, which creates inbound leads. These are the 3 components that get filled out once you answer step number 2, the second most important question in building out your go-to-market strategy and building out your go-to-market machine. Step number 3, this is when it starts to get fun. You have your ICP, you have your messaging, you have your positioning, you have your manifesto, you have some updates to your homepage, and maybe you have a lead magnet. Here's the big question. How do we know if our messaging and ICP is correct? How do we know it's actually going to stand up for itself in the market? How do we know that our potential customers will look at this and say, oh my God, I gotta talk to these guys. This is the exact problem that I have. No one is solving it in this way. I need to talk to them. So this is the third most important question, but you'll notice it builds on the other 2 questions. If you skip the first 2 and just get to this, well, you'll probably have pretty crappy messaging, pretty crappy positioning, not really an ideal customer profile, and therefore nothing's gonna work in the market, and therefore you won't be able to scale. There's 2 things that we do at this step. Number 1, we go to existing customers and we tell them, hey, we have this manifesto. It's essentially a helpful guide in talking about what we do. Would you be able to take a look at it and tell me if this matches with the reason you bought our product and why you chose us versus anyone else in the market? This does 2 things. 1, it gives us immediate validation on the people that are already convinced to do business with us and understands our product would look at it in the same way, or whether they would use different words. The second thing we get out of this is we always ask them for a referral. Say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, if there's a peer that you have, if there's another VP of sales that would get value from our platform that trusts you, would you share this with them and introduce us? Which immediately starts to test if this messaging can land us new revenue. And the second thing I like to do is I like to take this messaging, I like to take this lead magnet with my brand new updated website, and I like to test it with organic social. Organic social, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, or even here on YouTube, it's not like it used to be. It no longer matters whether you have 10,000 followers or not. What matters is the message. Meaning, these algorithms will take what you post and it will distribute it to your ideal customers if you message it the right way. And if your ideal customers like it, the algorithm will reward you and help propagate your post to more people that are your ICP. This does 2 things. 1, it tells us whether our messaging is resonating with our ideal customers, and 2, it gets us leads, which we can then turn to revenue. And this is how we can tell if the message is resonating or not. If it is, we move on to the next step. If it isn't, we go back to step 2 and step 1 and we iterate. We figure out what is the ICP, what is our messaging, what is our positioning, how do we make it convincing, and how do we deploy it and test it again until we actually get it right. Now, before I go to step number 4, I want to ask you, which of these have you struggled with the most? Which of these are you struggling with right now? Which of these have been the biggest unlock for you as you've been building out your go-to-market strategy? Put it in the comments below. I love hearing from you. If you have a question, you can post a question below as well. I'll always answer it. Also, if you want a copy of my 5-point AI, SaaS, and growth strategy guide, where I go in depth into each of these principles, just comment below, give me the guide, and I'll reply and link you to it. All right, now let's go to step number 4. Step number 4, this is where it starts to get really fun because now we have messaging, we have positioning, we know our ICP, and we know it's resonating. It's starting to get us attention. It's starting to get us leads. So here's the next important question. How do we consistently attract our ideal customers with our messaging? How do we actually take this message that converts well and gets the attention of our ideal customers, and how do we scale it out? This is where true scale comes because now we can actually go to any of the ad platforms and say, hey, here's a piece of messaging that works really well. Here's my lead magnet and here's my ICP. I will give you infinite amount of dollars because I know it's going to convert to revenue. Please get me more leads and put this message in front of this ICP so you can turn on ads. There's a nuance here. What you'll notice is we're not going with a $10,000 ad budget and saying, let's go test 8 different pieces of messaging and see what sticks. Rarely does that yield positive results, even though marketing agencies will pitch you on it, because at the end of the day, they just want to earn their fee. What we're doing here is we're starting small, we're testing the messaging with people we trust, and then we're using organic social algorithms to see what sticks, and then finally we're turning on ads based on content that we know has worked well. Once we have turned on ads, then we can also turn on outbound. And the reason outbound will work really well now is because 1, we know our messaging works, we know our targeting, and we also know that our website is converting. It doesn't have messaging that doesn't make sense. So that way, when they look at the outbound, they check out the website, they'll say, you know what, these guys look legit, I want to talk to them. And that's how we can start to scale. And guess what? By the time you get to ads and outbound, now you actually have a go-to-market strategy, but more importantly, you have a scalable growth machine. Because as you get more leads and convert it to revenue, you'll have more dollars to put back into ads. You'll have more resources to put into outbound, and you can scale that infinitely. And that's how you get to a proper scalable go-to-market machine. Step number 5. How do we convert attention and inbound leads to revenue? It's one thing to get a like. It's one thing to get an inbound lead, although inbound leads tend to convert at 50%. But you really need to figure out, how do we turn all this attention we're getting to real revenue? Well, there's 3 things that come out of this. 1, you want to make sure you have a proper nurture process. Every lead that comes in, every like, every engagement that you get, you want to have a proper nurture process to turn that attention to a real sales call or a trial. The second thing that you need is a proper sales process. You need a proper structured sales process. You need a sales deck, you need sales pipeline meetings, you need some sales training, and you need to make sure you're running your calls in the right way. For those of you that are like, I don't want any sales, I have a product-led growth experience, well, that's awesome. That's totally fine. You still need a salesperson. In this case, your product is your salesperson, which means that you need a proper new user experience that gets users to an aha moment so they actually convert at the end of the trial. Either way, it's a sales process. And the third thing is you need a proper pricing and offer. At the end of the day, people will hear you out and then they're going to comparison shop. The price that you quote and the offer that you make really differentiates you in the market. One of the things we've seen that AI companies that I work with and I have as clients is a lot of times people are afraid of whether the AI is going to be effective. But if you augment that with saying, hey, we'll include services so we can train the AI for you and we'll monitor it for you and we'll ensure success, they're more likely to buy. So your pricing and offer can include a mix of things. It could include the software, it could include the seats, but it could also include services to ensure that you're set up for success, which at the end of the day is win-win because they pay you more money and you have a customer for life, a successful customer. And that's step number 5. You actually make sure that you have the right systems in place to turn all that attention and those inbound leads that are coming in to real revenue. All right, now let's recap. In order to build out your go-to-market strategy, in order to build your scalable growth machine, these are the steps you want to be following. Step number 1, who has the urgent and important problem that we solve and how are we different? Number 2, how do we communicate our message in a convincing way? Number 3, how do we know if our messaging and ICP is correct? And number 4, how do we consistently, once we know it's correct, how do we consistently attract our ideal customers with our messaging? And number 5, how do we convert attention and inbound leads to actual revenue? These are the 5 steps that I've used over and over and over with my clients that are founders of AI and SaaS companies to build scalable growth machines and drive growth. Now, the one resource that I have for you is my AI and SaaS growth strategy guide. It's a 5-point guide, and it goes into more details about how to build a scalable go-to-market strategy. It's completely free, so to get access to it, just comment below with "Give me the guide," and I'll reply back with a link to it. What you can also do is just go to the description below and follow the link. I've included a link to the guide as well, so you can get on-demand access to it right away. Also, if you're in this stage where you're building out your scalable go-to-market strategy, and maybe you have some of these components in place, but other components are not in place, and some of it is working and some of it's not, and you just need to figure out what's working and what's not, then you should check out this video. Inside of this video, I walk you through the 5 steps to fix your broken go-to-market strategy. I'm TK, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.